The roar of the snowplow's engine was a mechanical growl that echoed off the frozen walls of the farmhouse, a discordant sound in the muffled silence of the blizzard. Elias stepped out from the side of the stable, his movements deliberate and devoid of the haste that usually signaled fear. He walked out into the open and greeted the men silently, holding his rifle in his left hand while pulling his heavy coat back, exposing the holster where his revolver sat comfortably. It was a visual language Mayor Sawyer understood perfectly, a soldier's warning that he was prepared for a fight he hadn't started. Sawyer and his men approached slowly, armed as well, but Sawyer didn't come for a battle. He stood near the truck, his clean, pressed clothes a stark insult to the grime of the world around them. He hadn't come to trade or to negotiate. He came to get what belonged to him and to deliver some bad news. "You look like a man who values the truth, Elias," Sawyer began, his voice cutting through the wind with chilling precision. "I'm sorry to tell you that Travis is dead." He paused, letting the words hang in the freezing air. "His daughter is also dead after she tried to leave town. She was found a few miles from here, frozen in the snow." The news hit Elias with the force of a physical blow, though his face remained a mask of iron. He remembered the old man's shaking hands in the diner and the desperate hope that his daughter might escape the depravity of the town hall. Elias was saddened about the news, but Sawyer threw salt onto that wound by expressing the insignificance of their deaths. To the mayor, they were merely broken cogs in his failing machine. Elias's heart became as cold as the weather, and he demanded to know what Sawyer wanted. The pretense of civility was gone, replaced by a visceral need to see this man off his land. Sawyer leaned against the hood of the truck, his eyes scanning the windows of the farmhouse. He explained that 2 of his girls left town, and he suspected they came here to seek shelter. He wanted to know if Elias had seen them. "If I had, they wouldn't still be here," Elias replied, his voice a low, dangerous rumble, "especially if they both worked for you." Sawyer's eyes narrowed, a predatory glint appearing in his gaze. "Are you saying they were here?" "No," Elias said, shifting his weight slightly so his hand was closer to his revolver. "I'm saying I want to be left alone." Sawyer didn't move. He gestured vaguely toward the snow-covered mounds near the tree line. "I know that, so do the men that came out here not too long ago." He looked directly at Elias, his smile thin and devoid of warmth. "I take it they're buried somewhere here under the snow." Elias gave no response, but he didn't have to. The silence was a confirmation that the hunters had become the hunted. Sawyer tried to be polite, his tone shifting into a mock reasonableness that was more terrifying than a shout. He asked if the men could search the house for the missing girls. Elias was unwilling and even suggested that the girls are most likely dead. He pointed toward the horizon, where the whiteout conditions were at their peak. The trek on foot in the blizzard would be too much for one person, let alone 2 that don't have the survival skills to brave the storm. Sawyer then asked calmly, "So then you're not going to welcome us into your home?" Elias didn't blink. "I told you, Sawyer, I want to be left alone." He nodded toward the truck, the engine still idling and wasting the precious fuel that had become the world's lifeblood. "I would suggest you turn that loud gas guzzler around and head back to New Cody." Sawyer's response was curt. "Very well, let's go, boys." He and his men climbed back into the truck and did as Elias suggested, the plow clearing a path as they retreated back toward the town. But Elias knew the man's nature. He knew this would not be the end of it. After they were out of sight, Elias didn't head for the warmth of the bunker. He went into the stable and prepared his horse for a day's travel, checking the cinch and the saddlebags with a frantic efficiency. The clock was ticking. He then went into the house and down through the fireplace to find Ella and Beth sitting together. But the welcome was far from warm. Ella was pointing a gun at him. Elias was not concerned, his military training taking over. "If you kill me, you won't make it out of here alive," he said, his voice flat. Beth, seeing the man who had given her sweetbread, pleaded with Ella not to shoot her new friend. She broke away from her sister and ran to Elias. The tension in the room snapped. Ella lowered the gun and begged Beth to stay away from him, but Beth remained by his side. Elias dropped to a knee, his focus entirely on the logistics of the next hour. "We don't have a lot of time. I need you and your sister to help me pack up so we can get you to a safe place." He handed Beth a backpack and threw another one at Ella. "I need you to fill these with as much food as you can, then put these coats on and meet me at the far end of the bunker." He gestured toward the dark concrete tunnel that led away from the house. "Do not go back up the stairs." Beth ran over to the chest next to the desk and started grabbing boxes of rations and putting them in the backpack, her small hands moving as fast as they could. Elias didn't stay to help. He went back up through the fireplace and then walked out of the house to scout the perimeter. He suspected that Sawyer was not going to just let things go and would send his men to handle the situation. His suspicions were confirmed the moment he stepped into the light. As he walked out on the porch, he became an instant target. Sawyer's men, who were carefully deployed, wore painted white camouflage to blend into the snow. They surveilled him from 100 yards away. Their rifles trained on his chest as he walked around the porch and disappeared as he made it around back. Elias moved with the grace of a man who had built this fortress himself. He knew where every blind spot was on the property and managed to make it to the stable without drawing fire. There, he met the girls, who were bundled up and ready to go. As they came into the stable, Elias reminded them to remain quiet, his finger to his lips. He helped them both onto his horse, the animal stamping its hooves in the cold, and gave them vague instructions. "I need you to stay here until it's time to go," he said. "When will we know it's time?" Ella asked, her voice trembling as she gripped the saddle. "You'll hear gunfire. A lot of it," Elias replied. It was a grim promise. "When you hear it, you need to go in that direction and don't stop for anything." He reached into his coat and handed her his sidearm, the weight of the metal a final transfer of responsibility. "You should be able to get to the trailhead by nightfall." He leaned in close, ensuring Ella understood the gravity of the instructions. Once she reached the trailhead, she was to rest up and make sure the horse got some dry hay and plenty of water. Then they were to head north and not stop until they reached the border. "What about you?" Ella asked, her eyes searching for a promise he couldn't make. "Don't worry about me. Just remember, don't leave this stable until you hear gunfire," he repeated, his tone leaving no room for argument. Beth was not willing to leave without her friend. She reached out for him, her eyes filling with tears. Elias took her small hand, his voice softening as he recalled the task he had given her in the bunker. "Beth, remember what I asked you to do? I need you to protect your sister. I need to do this so you can get clear. If I can, I'll meet up with you along the way." Beth wiped away tears and gave him a final fierce hug. Elias looked at Ella, signaling her to pull Beth away. Once she did, Elias held his finger to his mouth to signal them both to stay quiet while he left the stable and stepped back into the whiteout to face the men in the snow. Ella watched him go, then pulled Beth close, whispering quietly to the girl, "Don't worry, he'll be back soon." But as they waited for the first distant crack of a rifle blast echoing through the blizzard, they both knew the ghost of the farmhouse was about to become a storm of his own.